Good day to you, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name's Raj Chaudhary. I'll be moderating this session. I come to you from the state of Alabama in the US. You will be seeing my particular name actually quite a bit in the next year because I'm the president-elect of ISSOTL, so it's a great honor for me to be actually moderating this session. This is a paper session. So a paper session is a 30-minute time slot, and we will have about 20 minutes to present and about 10 minutes for some question and answer at the end. So our paper today is Coping with COVID-19 Challenges Through Critical Friendship and Significant Network, a case study from Iceland. And the presenting author is Ragna Kemp Haraldsdottir from Iceland, and I'll let her introduce her co-author names and the topic. Ragna, over to you.
Thank you so much. Welcome everyone, and thank you for attending this presentation. I would like to just start by introducing myself. As already mentioned, my name is Ragna Kemp Haraldsdottir, and I'm working at the University of Iceland, Institute of Social Sciences. My co-authors are Guðrún Geirsdóttir, Marco Solimiene, and Tamar Hæstra. And they send their regards. Unfortunately, they were not able to attend today. Guðrún is actually presenting in another session, I think tomorrow. So, and I would also like to thank the University of Western Australia for organizing this or hosting this ISSOTL conference. I would like to start with a little background. To start with, a 4-week assembly ban was declared in March 2020 in order to protect the Icelandic population from the COVID-19 pandemic. This meant that within a fortnight, most of the UE teachers had to make swift curriculum changes, reconstruct their previously planned assessment and examination practices. They had to learn how to manage new technology, organize online teaching, and adhere to the rector's insistence of easing pressure on students. Some UE academics had experienced digital teaching already, but for many this meant facing a steep learning curve. The aim of the study was therefore to understand the way particular 3 academics dealt with a sudden shift in teaching practices during COVID-19 and the challenges accompanying such shifts. Why only 3 academic teachers? That's a good question. That is because the data for the study derive from the experiences of 3 academics in social sciences who were at the time participating in a postgraduate diploma on higher education at the University of Iceland. And that is myself, Tamar, and Marco. They were therefore, or we were therefore, in the unprecedented role of simultaneously teaching and learning during COVID-19. The role of the supervisor of the diploma and the 4th author of this paper was to act as a facilitator and to introduce structures to support the professional learning processes of the 3 academics. Thus, all 4 authors were involved in emergency remote teaching learning process during the spring semester of 2020. Both as individual teachers and for the 3 academics, also as students in the postgraduate diploma. In parallel, the learning process took place where different experiences, stories, and reflections were shared, which permitted these academic colleagues to act as critical friends. They took notes and applied their learning to their courses while supported by each other and by their supervisor. The theoretical background, just shortly. We examined studies on online teaching, of course, which show that technological developments have made it easier for teachers and students to interact online in real time. But glitches, unstable internet connections, dysfunctional equipment, and lack of expertise still made online teaching challenging. Under normal circumstances, academic teachers use months to carefully plan and develop the pedagogy of a fully distant learning course in order to ensure its quality. The focus of this study is, however, on what Hodges et al. Refer to as emergency remote teaching, or online teaching that is characterized by an unprecedented and staggering speed. We also built on student-learner-centered approach, which stresses the need for increased student agency in the learning process and emphasizes openness, inclusiveness, and support of students, and a more cooperative and balanced relation between students and teachers. This changes the traditional role of the teacher and levels out traditional hierarchies. And finally, we also focused on the concept of critical friends and significant network. A student-centered learning approach requires teachers to take the role of a reflective practitioner and reconsider previous teaching practices. As Handel argues, the reflective work is preferably practiced with critical friends, defined as persons whose view you care about and listen to and follow. A crucial role is thus played by so-called significant conversations, through which teachers can share anxieties and enthusiasm about their position and the challenges and strategies used to cope with them. Significant conversations have been found to be successful as they provide participants with new ideas, inform their understanding of teaching, and offer professional and emotional support. Regarding the methodology, this study is built on intimate insider research. This means that the 3 teachers had previously been working on an approach related to a model called lesson study. That entails participant observations followed by collegial discussions that took place in the fall of 2019. Herein, the significant network of the 3 academics was first created. But then the primary data for this study derived from Q&A, which was part of the course assessment in the postgraduate diploma. Personal notes and reflections on the 3 academics, as well as shadowing logs produced while conducting classroom observations. The Q&A entailed a face-to-face sessions with the 3 academics, taking rotating roles of interviewer, respondent, and amanuensis. Secondary materials are interactions and emails from students, the midterm student evaluation, and emails sent by the rector of the University of Iceland during the spring semester of 2020. And on this slide, you can see an example of an email. During the assembly ban, the rector sent regular announcements with the slogan, "Together we will prevail." The announcements were both informing and encouraging and expressed gratitude towards students and staff. In order to answer the research questions, the study relies on the experiences of the 3 academics, and the questions were the following. What were the pedagogical and didactic challenges the 3 academics faced while trying to adjust their teaching to the conditions created by COVID-19? What did the alterations made in response to the pandemic impact the teacher-student interactions? How did the alterations impact, of course? And what are the implications of COVID-19 for academic teacher in the near future? If you look at the demographics, the teaching context of the 3 teachers, of which the collected data is based on, varied. The student number and the courses differed quantitatively, with a larger number of students in sociology and fewer in anthropology and information science. The geographical location of the students also differed in accordance with the percentage of registered distant students. In anthropology, many students were living abroad, even in other continents, while distant students had participated in information science courses for years, so there was a tradition for distant teaching there. Finally, there were differences in the students' living conditions, which emerged during online teaching and interactions between students and teachers. If we come to the findings, moving to online teaching required a series of adjustments regarding technical, attitudinal, pedagogical, and ethical aspects of teaching. Transforming on-campus teaching into online teaching meant getting familiar with new learning platforms, such as Canvas Studio, Zoom, Teams, and Inspira, just to mention a few. This experience is mirrored in a recent domestic study on the impact of COVID-19 on the working conditions of University of Iceland staff from May 2020, where the results showed that academics felt less productive than normally in their research, and it also showed that 94% of the academic staff used digital solutions to teach in the spring semester of 2020, while only 23% had previous experience in online teaching. Still, one of the unexpected positive sides of teaching online was the fact that the boundaries of time and location were more flexible. This contributed to a more equal participation between distant and on-campus students. Distant students became more visible and were more able to participate in the lesson to a fuller extent. Now they claimed a spot in Zoom or Teams, one exactly as large as the others on the screen, which meant that they could enjoy the teaching experience at the same level and were more included and actively involved than ever before. Initially, the teachers considered reducing feedback on assignments in order to lighten their workload. But they soon realized that this was not an option, as students appear to need more encouragement than usual. The teachers also decided to revise their assessment guidelines by extending deadlines and granting further extensions if needed. The students felt insecure and were clinging into the stability of their studies, and the pandemic increased the number of emails and influenced the way teachers and students communicated and related to one another. The shift in teachers' attitude towards a more student-centered approach in teaching was generally experienced as helpful by the students, some of whom had difficulties in making the deadlines as their private lives were also calling for reorganizations and adjustments. Student-centered teaching and learning-centered teaching stressed the need for increased student agency and engagement in the learning process. They emphasize openness, inclusiveness, and support of students, which result from institutional practices and from meeting students with care and kindness in the classroom. The pandemic also influenced the teacher-student communication and relation. Following the university's guidelines, which encouraged teachers towards understanding of students' needs and difficulties, the teachers increased online communication with the students. Interactions were also more receptive to students' needs and difficulties, and demonstrating a caring approach that emphasized the well-being of the students and their families. On the one hand, this impacted heavily on workload for the teachers. Again, the teacher felt responsible for the well-being of the student and their successful completion of the courses. This was sometimes at the expense of their own well-being. On the other hand, this overall situation created closer proximity and partly lowered the hierarchies characterizing the university environment, both between students and teachers, but also between distant students and on-campus students, as already mentioned. There are some reflections. From the pedagogical perspective, this kind of emergency remote teaching bears little resemblance to a carefully planned course design in online teaching. The teachers' attempts to redesign teaching and assessment proved to be only partly successful, although students in general showed appreciation and understanding. There were victories, but there were also mistakes. and hiccups due to the lack of time and planning. This demonstrates the need for pedagogically sound methods in curriculum design. The findings reveal that the teachers became learners trying to manage new methods and technologies. Their authoritative stance decreased, and this enhanced students' participation and the understanding of teacher efforts increased. The study thus shows that the pandemic triggered unforeseen results regarding more general changes in the pedagogy used in the courses, with a switch to a more flexible teaching approach. This flexibility is likely to remain once the pandemic has been defeated. So far, the lessons learned have already been useful for the fall semester of 2020 and in preparation for the winter of the spring of 21 and again now in the fall of 21. The difference from the experience of the spring 2020 semester is, however, that this approach that we are working on now is no longer qualifies as emergency teaching, but resembles the more carefully planned pedagogy of fully distant learning courses. The feeling of loneliness and the anxiety related to health risks and isolation in lockdown was a sheer element of everyone, teachers and students. It also made teachers more sensitive to students' circumstances and more responsive to their needs. Friendlier and a more personal tone was used in interactions in emails, and the use of ICTs blurred the separation between public and private space and roles. In that manner, Teams and Zoom meetings opened a window into the intimate space of private homes, the kitchen table or the living room. And in one case, a student had set up a home office in the garage just to get some peace and quiet. In that way, the personal life of individuals, which was previously kept at a safe distance from the eyes of outsiders, was all at once exposed to reciprocal gazes. Finally, the importance of critical friendship. Sharing personal knowledge and experience about new programs and platforms with the critical friends within the academia reduced the difficulties that many academic teachers encountered due to the pandemic. Critical friendship provided the emotional support that we needed by constituting a free and safe space, and it was very effective to cope with isolation and enhance reflectivity, awareness, and comparison. We think that this working methodology could be used more in the future, and that it should be promoted also in a more structured way within the university, with various university departments and schools and so on. That was all from me. Thank you all for listening. Glad to be with you.
Thank you, Ragna.
Thank you.
If we were in person, we would do a round of applause, but I don't know that over this platform that's quite as appropriate. I would encourage any questions. Andrea, who is one of our, thank you, Andrea, one of our organizers, so definitely a person that we all want to thank. I'll read the question to you while maybe Andrea is unable to unmute at this time. Yeah, exactly. Her question was, were you already in a study period when you needed to go online? If so, how did the students react? So I'm just wondering were you in the middle of an academic term?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It was, in Iceland, it all started in March 2020. So the semester had started in January.
Okay.
So we were kind of mid-term in our, both as teachers teaching our classes in anthropology, sociology, and information science, but also as students in the diploma for educational diploma that we were attending as well as students. So
right. Okay.
So both our supervisor, who is the fourth author of this paper, she had to change her curriculum so that all teaching in this diploma became online. And at the same time, we were kind of thrown just over a weekend to change all the programs that we had to online teaching. I'm the one teaching in information science, so I was the one that was kind of most experienced in teaching online, as I had done so for many years. But it was completely different, as when you're teaching simultaneously on-campus students and distant students, it's kind of just a recording of normal sessions. But now we had to change the whole program to a fully online session and start recording kind of shorter sessions, making them available for everybody, using different technologies, using online meetings like we are doing now, which had not been normal in our teaching environment. So many of the aspects were completely new. And for example, in sociology, they had never taught anything online. So it was completely new for them.
Right. So when did you get the idea for this study that you're presenting now?
It kind of just rose during the experience we had prior to COVID in the fall of 2019. We had been using participant observation within each other's classes. We had visited physically different classes and observed. So we had been meeting, the three of us, we had been taking notes, we had been kind of opening up this significant network and being this critical friend that was allowed to say, hey, maybe you should do something differently. So kind of just this experience we thought was something that could be useful for other teachers within the university. Because I think it's not that common that, because we are not teaching the same, even if we are within the same department, we are teaching different subjects.
Right.
So it's not as if we are always meeting.
Sure.
So I think that would be that, or we consider that it would be useful for our colleagues to know that this is something that had been very useful for us, and that many other teachers might also benefit
from this mutual critical friendship and the mutual observations. Exactly. That's fantastic. Andrew has another question in the chat. Did you have real-time classes online? Did you use Zoom or Teams to do what we call synchronous online?
We did both. Yes. We did have online classes in real time. We thought that was also important, just to kind of, in my case, almost the first half hour of every class that I did in real time started with just, how are you? How are you feeling? Are you okay? What is the situation? Because, on top of everybody's mind was COVID.
Absolutely, yes.
But then, and it kind of, as I said in the presentation, it was as if kind of the communication, the type of communication that happened between teachers and students and between the students, it differed. It was much more personal than it had been. Not as it had been bad prior, it just became more personal.
Right, absolutely.
So yes, we did both.
Okay. And did you record the sessions and then put them on a learning management system so students could go back?
Yes, always. Okay. Because we always, there were always some students that were unable to attend. They might be sick, or some of their family members might be sick. Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it was we had this domestic study within the university that showed that in the fall semester of 2020, there were most of the students were able to finish their courses, and the grades weren't lower, or the projects were even in my case, for example, they were even we were surprised actually how good they were, because in many cases the students had to work on projects with different companies and institutions around the capital.
Right.
And they had to do all this online. They had to connect with people that were also working from home from different institutions and companies. And they still managed to do this and do this really well, everything online.
Fantastic.
Mm.
Andrea shares some of what they found at their university. Yeah, students engaging with real-time classes when they were scheduled for face-to-face, but didn't engage at all in asynchronous discussion board activities.
No. We also in our paper we mentioned that in some cases it was better to meet with just partial groups, just a few students at a time. Sometimes they had some sort of group work, and then we just met online with a particular group at the time. And then it was easier for them to kind of be active within the class. Sometimes if they weren't, some of them were not used at all to being in online classes and on camera like this and being recorded and everything, so they stayed silent.
Right.
But if the group was smaller, if we could, for example, just using rooms within the system, within Teams or Zoom or whatever, to divide them into smaller rooms and visit the rooms and discuss particular aspects of their studies, they would be more talkative.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that was a pretty common worldwide phenomenon, right? For students to engage in this, which is nice to see. That for us as academics, then it provides us some lessons that we can apply across the world, right? So you can these are settings where university students' behavior was not terribly different in many different areas. I have a couple of quick, just one methodological question. So did you in terms of your qualitative data analysis, any special kind of techniques that you used there, or was it sort of just kind of looking for themes and codes and kind of going with that? Yeah,
both actually. We as it was kind of we changed roles, being interviewer and each we wrote each other's. One of us was the writer. For each session, so we weren't self-describing our experience. We were coding each other, and then each an individual academic read their own description, just to make sure that there wasn't anything wrong in there or misinterpreted or something. And then we coded, of course, what we had in resemblance between the three experiences, and what differed between us, and so on. And then we had meetings, both online meetings and when allowed face-to-face meetings, where and also with the fourth author, where we discussed our experiences in connection with educational science. We were always considering everything that we had studied in the diploma that we were
in the diploma. That was great. Yes.
Yeah. So
fantastic. You've actually given me a very interesting idea for a research study. The whole concept of looking at the rector's messages versus your internal messages, because I'm in a teaching and learning center, and of course we were sending all these messages of hope and using the LMS and online teaching and Zoom, and then our equivalent of the rector, there were the official messages coming from the highest levels of the university. And to think about, what's an analysis look like, looking at what was the tone, were they similar, were they different, what was the reality of that. That's a really neat idea. So I have to thank you for that.
And it was also actually interesting, because some of the messages, even if they were supposed to be you know, to calm us down or to,
you
know, say thank you. People were worried after reading a message saying that we are all working online, we are in control, and everybody was no, we're not.
We're not, exactly. Yes. Yeah. Okay, we are going to be mindful of the time. We're at the top of the hour. So thank you for a very great paper presentation.
Thank you so much.
To your colleagues as well for the work. Thank you for presenting at ISSOTL 2021. And hopefully, yes, good luck with all your endeavors, and hopefully see you at some future conference.
Thank you. Thank you as well. You're welcome to contact me if you would like for further discussion regarding looking at these emails. I'll put my email in the chat so you have it if you like.
Okay. Yes, that would be fantastic.